Hello, my dreamer friends. Good evening to you. May the 4th be with you. Tonight's bedtime biography story is about the artist, Faith Ringgold. I think you're going to like it. It's from one of my favorite series, Getting to Know the World's Greatest Artists by Mike Venezia. Faith Ringgold was born in New York City in 1930. She grew up during a time of a lot of prejudice and discrimination in the United States. When she became a professional artist, Faith fought hard to make sure that African American artists received the attention and respect that they deserve. Faith Ringgold is known for her paintings, prints, masks, and soft sculptures. These works of art often show her feelings about being an African American woman. Faith's most famous works are her story quilts. Faith makes the quilts by sewing together painted canvas and quilted fabric. Then she adds handwritten stories. With Faith's story quilts, you get to see great pictures and read about them at the same time. That's just one of the really, really cool, unique things about her artwork. Faith Ringgold, who was born Faith Jones, grew up in a section of New York City called Harlem. In the early 1900s, thousands of African Americans from southern states had moved to Harlem to find jobs and a better life. Many great jazz musicians, singers, athletes, authors, and artists lived in Harlem in the 1930s. On hot summer nights, Faith's family and neighbors would go up to the roof of their apartment building to cool off. Because the roof was covered with tar paper, everyone called it Tar Beach. At night, Faith loved to look up at the sky to see all of the stars. And there's a children's book, Tar Beach. Maybe you've read it. Yeah, it's a really cool book. She could see her favorite bridge, the George Washington Bridge, all lit up. One of Faith's most famous story quilts is about the magic she felt on those hot summer evenings. Storytelling was always an important part of Faith's life. When she was a little girl, Faith stayed up late listening to her parents, aunts, and uncles tell stories about their family history. Faith learned a lot, and it was great fun. Before people had television in their homes, storytelling and listening to the radio were major forms of entertainment. Faith and her brother and sister loved listening to radio shows. They let their imaginations run wild. When Faith was really little, she thought people were inside the radio talking through the speaker. Hurry up, everyone. The show starts in 5 minutes. And you can see all the little characters running to get inside the radio. That's what she thought happened. Faith spent a lot of her childhood at home. She was often sick with asthma. When Faith had an asthma attack, she had trouble breathing. During periods when Faith was sick, her mother, Willie, schooled her at home. Faith also spent lots of time drawing and coloring. Willie taught Faith to sew, too. Faith made all kinds of neat things, like little shoes, purses, and even underwear. On days when Faith was feeling better, Willie would take her to museums and stage performances, while her brother and sister were at school. Well, Faith, would you like to see Ella Fitzgerald or Duke Ellington today? Maybe Ella. Hey, no fair, we gotta go to school, yeah! And Ella Fitzgerald and Duke Ellington were two amazing musicians. And if you listen to our George Gershwin story, he also got a lot of enjoyment when he was around the same age, around the same time period, I'm pretty sure, 1920s, 1930s, in the same place, Harlem. As an adult, Faith said she didn't remember much about her early school years. She would never forget the lively jazz shows she saw at the theater as a child, however. Jazz is an exciting style of music that was originated by African Americans. Faith thought the lively shows she saw were art, even more than paintings and sculptures were. Later, Faith would paint and make prints of jazz musicians and singers. These pictures are so colorful and full of life, you could almost hear the jazz music when you look at them. Even though Faith was always interested in art, she didn't take any art classes in high school. She did practice at home, though. Faith often did portraits of friends and family members. When she went to the City College of New York, Faith studied education and art. It was in college that Faith made up her mind to be a serious full-time artist. One day, her instructor insulted a drawing she had made of a mountain scene. The instructor told Faith to label her mountains so that he could tell what they were. He also told Faith he didn't think she had the talent to become an artist. That was all Faith needed to hear. She decided then and there to show her teacher and everyone else that she would be an artist and a good one too. Please write down what these things are supposed to be. This guy makes me so angry. On the other hand, I do love to write. And remember, her paintings incorporated writing and art, her quilts. During college, Faith married her high school sweetheart, Earl Wallace. They had 2 daughters, Michelle and Barbara. When Faith graduated, she got a job as an art teacher in New York City public schools. It wasn't easy, and not an easy start for a young woman. To make matters worse, the marriage didn't work out. After 4 years, Faith and Earl separated. Faith had to figure out how to raise 2 young daughters, work as an art teacher, continue her education, and find a way to become a full-time artist. Fortunately, Faith got a lot of help from her mom. Then, she fell in love with a man named Burdett Ringgold. Faith and Burdett got married in 1962. Faith, Burdett's here. He wants to marry you. Mommy, it's the principal. Can you take over Mrs. Grunch's class today? Michelle, hid that peanut butter again. Mom. So probably like your moms and dads and Grammys and Grampies. She had a lot going on. A lot pulling on her in different ways. Now that Faith had more help taking care of the girls, she really got busy working on her art. During her college years, Faith had learned about all the great European artists. Faith studied and copied the works of Vincent van Gogh, we heard his story, Pablo Picasso, and Leonardo da Vinci. Faith's first paintings were influenced by the old master artists. Even though Faith appreciated and learned important lessons from European art, it really didn't seem to have much to do with her life or her experiences. So Faith started doing paintings that were more meaningful to her. They were about things she saw going on in the United States at the moment, things that African Americans were experiencing, especially African American women. Faith took what she had learned in school and combined it with the discoveries she had made about African art. Faith studied and copied patterns, shapes, rhythms, and colors used in African art. She also became inspired by great African American artists like Jacob Lawrence. She began to add these ideas into her paintings. Faith was beginning to feel good about her art discoveries. Now she had to find a way to get her paintings noticed more. In the 1960s, people who owned galleries or ran art museums didn't think that anyone cared about artwork done by Black women. Faith definitely didn't agree. She began showing her work to art dealers all over New York City. She even helped organize protests in front of New York City art museums when they ignored Black artists. The protests helped get museum people interested in African American artists. Over time, Faith Ringgold and her work began to get noticed too. By 1973, Faith was selling enough paintings to be able to follow her dream of becoming a full-time artist. That is the weirdest looking abstract sculpture I've ever seen. We're not a sculpture, man. We're protesters. They're protesting. Faith discovered something while on a trip to Europe. It made it easier for her to show her work around. She saw an exhibition of ancient paintings from Tibet that were framed in cloth. These Tibetan cloth frames were also called tankas. Faith thought that tankas would look great with her paintings. Now Faith could forget about heavy wooden frames and glass. Tankas allowed her to fold or roll up her paintings. This made it much easier and less expensive to ship her work to galleries and art shows. Faith's mother, Willie, sometimes helped her daughter make the tankas. Willie was perfect for the job. She had become a well-known fashion designer in Harlem and really knew how to sew. Faith loved sewing from the time she was a little girl. It wasn't long before Faith was using her sewing skills to create her famous quilts. Quilt making is an African American tradition. In the 1800s, slave women would make quilts for their owners. They often added colorful shapes and designs that came from their African past. Faith loved writing stories to go along with her quilt paintings. Writing was just about as important to Faith as painting and sculpting. It's much better to see a real Faith Ringgold quilt than a picture of one. It's interesting to see how she stitches pieces of painted canvas together, and she made colorful cloth frames. It's fun to read the stories on the quilts too. If you can't find a real Faith Ringgold story quilt to look at, you can check out her many beautifully illustrated children's books. A great example is her first book, Tar Beach. It tells the story of Cassie Lightfoot, the main character from the Tar Beach story quilts. Faith also used her knowledge of African art when she created her mask series and soft sculptures. Once again, Faith combined African designs, fabric, and beads to create remarkable three-dimensional works. Faith Ringgold has worked hard to make her dreams of becoming a full-time artist come true. Today, her artwork can be seen in museums and on walls of public buildings all over the United States. Faith has proven in her own life that if someone really wants to do something, they can. She believes that just like Cassie Lightfoot, the little girl in Tar Beach story, anyone can fly. And I will put a link to where you can see some of her work, and maybe one day this week or next week I'll read the Tar Beach story. It's really good. We have her children's books here at the library. So tonight, go to sleep, look up at the stars, and think about all the things that you can dream and you can be, and keep working together with your beautiful families and the people who love you, and keep being the people that you are, because you're awesome. You don't need to change. Yeah. Give yourself a kiss on your beautiful brain. Give yourself a kiss in your loving heart, and look in the mirror and say, hey, good looking, because you're all good looking, just the way you are. And I am cold, and that's why I have thousands of coats on. It's so sunny. I mean, it was a really nice day, right? It's freezing in here. That's because we need some more people in here. But when it's safe, we will be all back together. Thank you very much. Thanks for staying safe as well. Good night, guys.